I think we can go ahead and get started. So everyone, welcome to Collaborating Beyond the Rivalries. Wow, that's a hard word for me today, apparently. For career development, don't forget you can click live transcript at the bottom if you choose to do so, and I will hand it off to Heidi.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Christine. Welcome. We're so excited to have everyone here with us today for our session, Collaborating Beyond the Rivalries for Career Development. And so while you are getting situated, if you can introduce yourself in the chat and share a little about yourself, including your school, your location, your role. And as you are doing so, we will also do the same and introduce ourselves to you.
So I guess I'm first because I'm on the top. So my name is Grant Bowden. I don't know if any of you guys read the bios that were on the page ahead of time. Sorry, my cat just knocked over some stuff. But I work at the MITRE Corporation, and currently I work for the intelligence community out in MITRE, and I've been there for roughly 7 years. I'm a former Division I college football player, and I also lead what is known as the NCAA Student Athlete Initiative at MITRE.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Shamaree Brown, currently serves Director of Student Athlete Programs and Compliance at the ACC. We get the opportunity to work with the greats like Heidi and Sarah in supporting our student athlete development administrators, academic support administrators, as well as working in the health and safety space, and in a small compliance role around some of the student athlete welfare compliance related topics. So looking forward to joining you all today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Lage. I'm the Senior Director for Student Athlete Career Development here at Virginia Tech. I've been here for about 3.5 years and oversee all the career development programming for our Hokies. So looking forward to sharing with you all what we're doing.
And I'm Heidi. I am with the University of Virginia. I started in this past summer of 2021 in this role, and just honored to be a part of this group. Grant, Sarah, and Shamaree have welcomed me into the career development space right away from the start. And so prior to starting at UVA, I worked for a nonprofit organization, Lynchburg Beacon of Hope, in addition to some years with the National Football Foundation's Play It Smart program and the NFL's High School Player Development program. And much of my experience centers on student athlete support services, and happy to be here today.
All right, so this is today's outline. We're going to kind of really cover the theme of this year's summit, resilience and reinvention. So with the resilience, strategies that we have used to increase student athlete career development, as we're coming out of the shutdown from COVID, learned a lot about, virtual, hybrid, a lot about collaboration. So we'll be talking about that. Then we'll move into reinvention with the MITRE social justice initiatives with NCAA schools. And then we'll finish up today with a roundtable on Q&A. So as you come up with questions and have questions, please feel free to put those into the chat.
Awesome, thank you. And as you are part of the session today, we want you to participate. So sharing any questions or thoughts in the chat. And also if you can, as we get started, share some of the barriers that you may be facing at your school in regards to career development for your student athletes. And we'd like to work through those together towards the end and address some solution-based discussion. So as you know, we are going to cover our session in 2 primary segments. The first will start off with Sarah and I going into some detail about our career development roles at our respective campuses through the lens of relationships and programming. And the second section is going to be covered by Grant and Shamaree to share about a recent collaboration that was innovative in terms of utilizing some career mentorship through the MITRE Corporation and the ACC. And so you'll get to learn a little more about that as well before we head into the roundtable discussion section. So to kick it off here, with the University of Virginia, we have focused on relationship building as the foundation for our student athlete development outreach in in terms of preparing for career. And 3 areas that I'm going to share briefly about today are covered here. And so just for a little background, our department through the university is set up through academic affairs. And so student athlete development is with the academic affairs department, and we meet once or twice per week as an entire staff. So that includes our academic coordinators, learning specialists, and student athlete development staff for career and community and leadership development. And so with that presents a lot of chance to collaborate with the staff to prepare for what's next after our students finish their time at the university. Regarding our caseloads, our career staff is sectioned off by our academic coordinators. And so our ACs have a caseload that covers either a position group for football in addition to Olympic sports teams, or if they don't have position groups for football, then they would have men's or women's basketball, so that each of our staff has part of a revenue sport and part of an Olympic sports team. And so with that setup for us internally, it does open up a large area for us to enhance our relationship building. And so that has worked out well for us so far. And even though we're all under one staff, we still have 3 different locations where our offices are located. So some are in the basketball arena, some are in the football operations, or some are in the Olympic Sports Center. Just a little background on how that physically looks. And so that has opened up doors for us to start those relationships individually by learning through the ACs, some of the needs and requests that are there, in addition to working directly with head coaches, primarily in the off season, to plan ahead for the type of programming that they may anticipate it being an interest in during their season or during their off season. So that is one of the first ways that we have set a foundation of relationships. Second is through our alumni. We have created an internal database of alumni that are welcome to having our current players and student athletes reach out to them for assistance in exploring what they might want to do after they graduate. And so this includes things like informational interviews, resume reviews, networking casually or formally, job shadowing, internships, externships, and as well as employment. And so this has helped us kind of bridge the gap for our student athletes to have a safe area for them to know that they can reach out and start building those relationships to become independent and autonomous in this journey. And then the last area that we've been able to be blessed with regarding relationships is through partnership with the Athlife Foundation. As you may know, after our men's basketball team won the championship in 2019, our head basketball coach, Coach Bennett, he turned down his raise and gave $500,000 to career development at the University of Virginia. And so with part of that, we've been able to partner with Athlife, who also provides career services for athletes as they are finished playing in the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, and Major League Soccer. And so they have also now partnered with us as their first university partner to help train our staff on how to prepare for career transition proactively with our current players, and then also to absorb former student athletes who may be still in need of career support. And so we've been blessed to be able to work together through those relationships and stakeholder partners for supporting our student athletes with wraparound services. And so in closing, I just wanted to share that one additional way that we focus on our relationships is by utilizing something that we call our priority group, so that we can identify which students might be historically underrepresented and be able to provide additional supports and intentional outreach to our students who may be Pell eligible, students of color, students who are first generation college students, international students, and then some of our student athletes who are solely focused on playing professional sports. And so those 5 subgroups, we like to give additional focus on building those relationships so that they're building trust and rapport in order to have conversations around career development, in addition to their academics, personal leadership, and community development. So I'm going to pass the mic to Sarah, who's going to share a little about approach for programming that has supported the career engagement for Virginia Tech.
Thank you, Heidi. So yes, here at Virginia Tech, we are kind of separated from our academic advising. And I believe we did have a presentation earlier by Elise from some of the things that she's doing down in SAS. So here in student athlete development, we are very unique in that we have folks in our office that are, specifically focused on one area. For instance, myself, I oversee career development. We also have someone to oversee personal development and then someone to oversee our leadership development. We also do some diversity and inclusion efforts in our office, such as our Hokies All In affinity groups. So we're a little bit different from UVA, but we do have that great relationship with our folks here at Virginia Tech in our SAS area. So within the career development programming here at Virginia Tech, our kind of umbrella, if you would say, of approach is called the career game plan. And so, I've been in career services since 2008. So so I've been able to kind of implement some of the things that I've learned over the years into our programming. And really with the career game plan is we're taking the career development process, which is scary, intimidating, something that we all know our student athletes are not really thinking about until probably when they have to or when we're bugging them about it. We've taken the career development process and just put it into small bite-sized pieces so that each year they're participating in a program that just kind of chips away at that process. And then in the very end, hopefully they've got a good set of tools in their back pocket that they can go out and have a successful career after Virginia Tech. So our first key play in our career game plan is Major Matchmaker. It's basically, career and major exploration. The second, which is Resume Remix. And this has been one event that, as a result of COVID, we've taken from a in-person event to our virtual program. And I do have to say that this program thrives in the virtual environment because I'm able to, offer employers to participate that from all over the country. They don't have to be here in Blacksburg. They can, participate whether they're here on the East Coast or the West Coast. And our student athletes absolutely love it because they're being engaged with more employers, and it's 15 minutes. They're kind of in and out of the breakout rooms, and they love it. The next event is Career Jumpstart. So I am putting our student athletes in front of employers as often as I can because I want them to get that exposure to folks outside of Virginia Tech. I want to kind of give them that opportunity to learn how to introduce themselves, how to have conversations with folks that they don't even know. So when they are going to on-campus career fairs or interviews, they're ready. And then our final key play is Beyond VT. So this is for our student athletes who are graduating. So for this year, it's for our May, August, and December grads. We've got about 111 student athletes that are graduating this year. My event, Beyond VT, is on Monday. We have 50 student athletes that are registered. So I am like over the moon with this, super excited that our student athletes are understanding the importance of this. And with this event particularly, I bring back our former Hokies to talk about how they transitioned to life after Virginia Tech and life after athletics. And it's just a really good event. So if our student athletes complete all of these key plays, and we know that they love swag, so each of these has some swag built in, but if they complete each of these key plays, we purchase them a complimentary business suit from Reveal Suits that they get to customize. Everything down to the color, the lapels, the buttons, it's monogrammed in the inside. It's great. So we started out, this is our third year with Reveal Suits. In 2020, we had 10 student athletes. 2021, we had 20. And this year, we're going to have about 30 student athletes getting their suits. So I tell our student athletes, if they can give me 1 hour of their time each year, I'll get them that $400 suit. So you can't go wrong with that. Some other events and workshops that we do, we've got our Hokie Lead mentorship program and our summer internship program that just allows our student athletes to gain that experience during the summer. And, we all know that for our student athletes, finding an internship that is flexible with their time is a bit hard. But this internship program kind of works around their schedule, and also work with our student athletes if they want to kind of go outside of that. We also started a career track back in 2019 to Charlotte. We did a Charlotte sports industry career track, which was fantastic, and kind of, we've kept doing that. But because of COVID in 2020, we actually were supposed to go down to Durham, but we made it an ACC virtual career track where, once again, that collaboration, that family that we have here in the ACC, reached out to Shamaree and others within the ACC and say, hey, look, what do you think? Let's do it. Let's bring our student athletes together. Let's bring in some former student athletes to do a career track virtually. It was fantastic, and we're continuing that since COVID. And then kind of going to some other initiatives with the ACC, that kind of like the ACC virtual career track kind of started that motion of it really increasing the collaboration, especially within the career development space. But then I have employers all the time asking for info sessions, and we all know it's hard to get our student athletes at info sessions, in a general student population, that's hard, but with our student athletes and their just time commitments, it's really difficult. So, this past year, I was like, you know what, let's do the info sessions, but I'm going to invite the ACC. I'm going to invite other schools. So examples of this have been the University of Nottingham, NASCAR, Gartner, and others. So this is just the beginning. I just want to really emphasize that the ACC is a family, and being able to share these opportunities with my family and with others, it's great, because for me, regardless if it's a Virginia Tech student athlete participating or a UVA or Clemson or whatever, it's all about our student athletes. All right, I'm going to hand it over to Shamaree and Grant.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. And you made the perfect segue, right? Just about the ACC family. We're blessed in ACC, and I'll say this, and I'm so biased here, but I just feel like we have the best administrators, best professionals, best schools in the nation, right? And especially as it relates to the student athlete welfare, student athlete development side of the house. Our people really believe in supporting each other as administrators, as professionals, as individuals, but also supporting the student athletes from other institutions, right? I think that's one of the things that's really cool. And as Sarah mentioned, one of the things that the pandemic brought to us was even more collaboration, right? Everything from the career track, the virtual career track that Sarah mentioned, to even a professional development academy that hosted over 200 student athletes from across all of our member institutions. The thing that makes the ACC so great is that collaboration, right? And so as you look at, okay, what is the role of a conference office? What can we really do, as we don't have the day-to-day interaction with student athletes, such as you all on campus? And so for me, I look at our role from a conference standpoint, kind of in three areas. Part of that is supplementing the programming that's taking place on campus, right? We're not going to build the programming from scratch, but we're going to find ways to supplement what's already going on campus. And so that may look like doing some programming, helping build some curriculum, but also providing funding, right? Funding that can help offset some of the expenses that you all incur, in day-to-day and trying to build out your programming. Also sourcing partnerships, right? Finding the key partnerships that can benefit majority of your schools, majority of your student athletes, and developing those relationships that make sense, and kind of taking the lead on organizing and the time-consuming work that goes into building out relationships and partnerships. Understanding that on campus you have your heads and your hands in so many different fires. If we can take off some of that weight, take up some of that time from a conference standpoint, that's what we're here for. The second piece is trying to promote and highlight the work that you all are doing on campuses. We want to promote, we want to highlight the success stories. We want to make sure that we're using our platforms from a conference standpoint to make sure that the public knows what's going on from a student athlete development. and engagement standpoint, right? Because we know the media is going to write the stories from a negative side of the house, but we also want to make sure that we're leveraging our media partners to write those stories about what's going on positively. And then the third piece that I think is really dear for me is building a community. I'm really passionate about building communities, both for our student athletes and helping them find their tribes, but also for our administrators, right, and for our staff members at our campuses, and making sure they have their tribe, that they feel supported, especially feel supported from a conference standpoint, right? And so that community provides a level of support, but we're also looking to provide a level of advocacy, right? As we talk about changing policy and talk about building out programming, we want to make sure that the professionals, that the experts that you all's voice are in on those conversations. And so we're fortunate trying to kind of jump into the MITRE program and with the program with the MITRE Corporation. We're really fortunate that Sarah, as she's done over the course of the last year and a half, brought MITRE and introduced MITRE to me, and introduced to me the conversations that she, Heidi, and Grant had about doing a career track. And I got really excited about it because I really love being able to present a diverse group of organizations and career paths to our student athletes, and not just kind of getting stuck in that sports business pathway that we tend to be stuck in from a conference office standpoint. And so when I learned about MITRE, an organization that affects our lives, and I had never heard of them, and I'm sure Grant will kind of give you all the rundown and the Cliff Notes version as to who MITRE is and what MITRE does. I guess really got excited about the opportunity of being able to engage our student athletes into this organization. And so as Sarah talked about some of the work that they had spent over a year planning for in-person career track to head to MITRE, and then we saw the second or third piece of the pandemic rise up, right, with the most recent variant that we had. But as I was looking at it, my main focus was trying to figure out how we could best promote this career track, but also encourage participation. Because I feel so strongly about what MITRE provides to student athletes, and Grant and his team had identified the student athlete population as a group that benefits MITRE and the success that former student athletes that work in MITRE have, right? And so they built out this program for NCAA student athletes. My main goal was, okay, how can we encourage participation, and how can we promote to our student athletes who MITRE is, an opportunity for them as they begin to transition, but also for internships that MITRE provides. And so once again, looking at the conference office's role, how do we supplement this work? And so we were able to provide funding to our schools to encourage participation, encourage student athletes to attend an in-person career track, as well as invite at least one administrator, at least one career development professional to attend the career track as well. And so for the career track that was hosted back in January, and I know Grant is going to go into this, but they held it at two of their locations, at the headquarters in McLean, Virginia, as well as up in that Bedford, Massachusetts location, but then also had a virtual session availability, just to kind of continue to enhance and promote the engagement of our student athletes. And so it was a tremendous opportunity for MITRE to host our student athletes up there. And it wasn't just ACC student athletes, but it was student athletes from other institutions. And this is a program that we're really excited about. We're really excited about the future of it. And with that being said, I'll turn it over to Grant to begin providing a little bit of information about who MITRE is, what the NCAA program is that they built out. So Grant, turn it over to you.
Thank you. So the previous slide, just real quick. So that was a photo from the McLean event. You see some of our MITRE staff in the background, and the many UVA student athletes that came in strong force. I'm sorry, not very few of the Hokies came, but they all attended virtually, but maybe next year. So we can go on to the next slide. So the first question I always get is, what is MITRE? What do we do? And don't worry, I thought the same thing the first time I heard about MITRE. So a little bit of my backstory: I was a college football player, and I had a job offer to go work at the CIA, and they said, hey, you should go get a job in Northern Virginia while your clearance comes through. And I said, okay, where at? And my dad had a connection. He's like, hey, you should think about this company called MITRE. And I said, oh, what do they do? And the short and skinny answer is we do everything. And it's hard to explain what a company like MITRE does. Real quick, we were originally founded by MIT roughly 65 years ago, and we operate these things that are known as FFRDCs, or federally funded research and development centers. So the quick and easy way to think about what MITRE is and what we do is we're a research and development think tank that operates as a not-for-profit entity in the interest of the government and the people of the United States. And so you can see here on this impact slide some of the type of work that we do. I mean, we started with this program called the SAGE Radar, which is now air traffic control in the United States. And we have been big in COVID. We do things like cybersecurity, intelligence policy, GPS. I mean, you name it, we do it. I mean, we are pretty much part of every federal agency, and we really play a big role in influencing the policy and the way that the government thinks about things. So in total, we roughly have, I don't know, 9,500 employees across 66 locations, with, of course, our two biggest presences in the DC area and the Boston region. But we are doing this initiative now called iHubs, where we're seeking to grow our presence in other metropolitan areas in order to capture some of the talent that's valuable. And so those are Atlanta, South Florida, like Miami region, Newport News, the Denver, Colorado Springs area, Huntsville, Alabama, and Austin, San Antonio, Texas. So we can go on to the next slide, I think. So how did we get to having what is known as the NCAA Student Athlete Initiative? Well, in 2020, I think everybody's pretty familiar with the kind of issues that were surrounding the George Floyd death and some of the social justice riots and things that took place after that. There was recognition within MITRE that we needed to do more to increase our own inclusion and diversity within the company. And so we first did that by hiring a new VP of inclusion and diversity, which we didn't have previous that. And so she took on a new role, and she started this thing called the Social Justice Initiative, where they took proposals. And the reason why this is important, especially at MITRE, we don't have this slide included in here, but when you look at the demographics of MITRE as an engineering company, I think most people would acknowledge engineering and STEM-oriented fields have largely been male dominated. So at MITRE, we are 71% men, and there's certain things that we're trying to do to improve the overall demographic of our company, and not always just hire the kid that was in the robotics club out of MIT, and kind of diversify our overall base. So I submitted this proposal and then had Justin Williams, who's not online with us, he's another former college football player that works at MITRE. We tag team this effort to bring this proposal forward, which we presented to our executive board, talking about the value that NCAA student athletes play. And so this is one of the slides from that deck that we presented to the board, in terms of, we took the actual MITRE strategy document and we looked at what the strategy document in the company outlines as MITRE's culture, and we compared them to common attributes that student athletes display. And a lot of these are soft skills. They're really hard to understand from a resume. And that's the point that we were trying to make, is that a lot of times student athletes get overlooked in the hiring process because they don't have the 4 internships, or they're not in the robotics club, they're not in the cybersecurity club. There's a lot of difficulty in taking part in those extracurriculars due to just the immense demands that you have in your life. I mean, as a former college football player, I can tell you that I did 0 internships in college. And I definitely experienced for myself the difficulty in kind of finding a job, which would surprise you considering I have 3 master's degrees. But yeah, it was tough for me. And so I definitely kind of feel the challenge that a lot of student athletes face, and we advocated for them. And we did this in a very deliberative way, where we made our case about why it matters, but we also did external and internal research that took research that was conducted by Gallup. And Gallup, just so you guys know, is the company that we use to do our own evaluative criteria when we talk to our various federal sponsors. So we took the Gallup assessment that was done on student athlete success after they graduate, and then we did an internal scrub of our own population within the company. And when we looked at MITRE and we compared it to some of the statistics that we found from the Gallup poll, which kind of talked about, hey, student athletes are more likely to be leaders, and more likely to kind of go on and pursue advanced education, it lined up with the data that we had internally. So we have roughly, amongst our over 9,000 employees, over 200 former student athletes. And the former student athletes on average have higher tenure, they get more awards, they're generally in positions of leadership, and they also have more education than the average MITRE employee, which is a big deal when over 80% of our company has at least a master's degree. So you can see how this was a pretty easy sell to our executives. And so from there, Justin and I went on what I would call a whirlwind tour of meeting, where we probably had 50 to 100 separate meetings with various hiring managers, directors, and senior executives across the company. And this was all in the background of initially reaching out to Sarah and talking with Heidi's predecessor, and then eventually way down the road, getting connected with Shamaree and Mara, and actually flying them up to visit us in person. So Shamaree was able to kind of get a personalized tour and see the same laboratories that we took the student athletes from. We, I don't think we mentioned this, but part of the Career Trek event was allowing them to experience what MITRE has to offer from a technical standpoint. So we took them to our big FAA lab, which I think was in one of the preceding pictures on slide 10. Yeah, but anyways, the different labs, so we took them to the FAA lab, which has, yeah, you can see that is a big kind of 360-degree screen and there's flight simulators in there and all kind of stuff. So part of MITRE that does our air traffic control, that simulates a full air traffic control environment. We took them to our CIMEX environment, which is like an encapsulated room that allows people to experience big CIMEXs. And then we also took them and let them kind of experience brain research and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, appreciate, this is a good slide. This is a good outline. And so, I wasn't sure how the student athletes were taking it initially, because they were pretty quiet. Yeah, I think they were just kind of taking it in. And yeah, Lavanya, go ahead. You can ask your question right now.
Oh, forgive me. Inadvertently raised my hand. No questions to be asked. Sorry for the interruption.
Yeah, don't worry. Feel free to interrupt anytime. So yeah, so I wasn't sure how the student athletes took it initially until we built, and at the end of the day, you can see right there, we have a panel where we had former student athletes that kind of talked about their experience at MITRE, how they got there, and why they felt in their own roles that student athletes were valuable. So we got, like Melissa from finance, we got Bundus, who is a former swimmer and he's a physicist, and we got people like me who just do policy. And we got all sorts of people that kind of talked about their experience, and it was useful for them to kind of hear from the former student athletes and hear what we had to say about our experiences at MITRE. And right after that, we had a networking session where we had hiring managers come down, and a lot of them got to talk directly to some of the student athletes who were there. And that's where I think I really heard from a lot of the student athletes just how much they had enjoyed the event, how much they had enjoyed kind of learning about MITRE. And I got to say, I probably got like 20 emails after the event too. And so it was a really value add standpoint from us. Yeah, you can see some of the numbers. And this was a little bit kind of thrown together somewhat last minute in terms of, initially we were just primarily talking with Virginia Tech and UVA. And then when they said, hey, do we want to include other ACC schools? I was like, yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, 10 of the 15 ACC schools were back in session. So we had a few attend virtually, but from my view, that didn't hurt our outcomes. We had 21 plus interviews. We had 10 internship plus full-time offers, or maybe more than that. So this summer, we've got 4 student athletes from Virginia Tech, 2 from UVA. So 1 is a full-time hire. That's a D. He's a football player. 1 from Duke, 1 from Georgia Tech. And then, of course, some of the other student athletes that came from non-ACC schools, like one golfer from Brown, she showed up, we hired her. And then we had another lacrosse player from Stevens Institute show up, and we hired him. So it was really valuable in the sense that the message I got from the hiring managers and directors that got to see the resume pool that was gathered from it, they were really impressed with the applicant pool from not only the event, but also just being able to speak to the student athletes in person. And that's the value that you get from an event like that, is that you get to sit yourself in front of a hiring manager and really impress them without them looking at your resume and discarding it because you don't have those 2 or 3 internships. So yeah, a little bit more about the application data. So MITRE, we get a lot of applicants. This year we have roughly 20,000 applications between interns and full-time hires. And so what I did is I filtered out some of the student athletes, and this is only via what is known as the engineering evergreen requisitions. So we have 5 permanent requisitions that get posted that recruit from our most needed, I guess, fields. So that's generally cybersecurity, software engineering, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, that kind of stuff. It's a hardcore engineering thing. And just in that pool, we had over 300 student athletes apply. The average GPA was 3.7, and that's after they made it through the first round of filtering. And from that pool, there was over 20 plus hires. And so a little bit of what this effort at MITRE is trying to accomplish, the NCAA Student Athlete Initiative, it's trying to increase the overall diversity of the pool of applicants in MITRE and also afford those applicants additional visibility in front of hiring managers so that they have that opportunity to kind of get past that initial HR screen that says, oh, this person doesn't have as many internships or kind of club activities. And it's been pretty successful so far. And we're seeking to continue to grow it and continue to build it out and find those additional opportunities so that students can get seen more. So one of the things that I'm hoping to do and planning to do is in July, host an event to kind of brief and talk about how our hiring process works, what the timelines look like from when we have our first internship postings that go up in August to most of the offers going out by Thanksgiving on like a quick timetable so that student athletes are able to be prepared and ahead of time and compete in a smaller pool. So that's the intent. That's kind of the where next. It's continuing to build the initiative internally and externally. Did you guys want to add anything else? Because I know all of the other participants on this call, Heidi and Sarah and Shamaree, they have all come to MITRE in person, so they all have their own personal opinions and perspectives and that are extremely valuable for me and also for you as well.
I think I would just say, like, with the career track, it was great that the student athletes had that hands-on experience. You know, it's one thing for someone to have a Zoom call or a conversation at a career fair with an employer, but actually to go to a potential place of employment for a student athlete, it's great. Because, you know, our student athletes had that opportunity to do the flight simulation. They had a chance to find the bad guy. I mean, like, they got really hands-on opportunity to talk with other former student athletes that work at MITRE. So it was a great program and something that I would definitely encourage other schools to look into.
Yes, I'd love to add on to that one of the things that I recall them taking away was getting to fully experience the company culture, which really emulated a team environment, and were able to feel welcome and could really share how much they valued their transferable skills. And so that was one of the big takeaways in addition to everything else that's been mentioned as well.
Yep, and the only other thing I'll add is just from a major standpoint, as much as MITRE is an engineering technology organization, from a major standpoint, I think student athletes that major in many more disciplines could benefit and engage in MITRE, right? From finance and economics to psychology. So Grant, help me out. It's more than just engineering.
Yeah, healthcare. I mean, we literally hire anybody and everybody. I mean, we have people that do cost analysis. I mean, my background is finance, and I mean, it's pretty much anything you can think of, we do and we hire.
Right, and so that was the other part that made me excited, is because we're able to cast a wide net of student athletes who could engage and really want to experience MITRE.
Yeah, and I will add one thing based off of kind of Heidi's comment, because I probably forgot to mention this. So the way MITRE operates and works, and this is a little bit different than most companies, I would say. When you get hired into MITRE, you're generally not occupying a button seat type role. You have a lot of autonomy to make your own career. So like the things that I work on, I get to pick what I'm working on. If I get tired of working with an agency, I can go work with another agency and not have to quit the company. And that's what makes a lot of student athletes excel within MITRE's environment, is that it's a very independent environment that you're able to kind of chart your own course and not all students that come straight out of school can kind of handle that level of choice and independence. Secondly, MITRE is what I would say is a project and team-oriented environment, and that's a lot of time means that, for example, if I'm going to work for a sponsor, a lot of times I'll be put onto a team of maybe 5 or 20 people, and you have to have had experience in working with all different sorts of backgrounds, and those kinds of people that are able to work towards a goal and work on a team, no matter kind of who they're working with, also really excel at MITRE. And so that's kind of some of the attributes that really make student athletes successful at our company.
Yeah, so I'll go in now to kind of like the timeline that we've all kind of talked about. So you'll see that my conversation with Grant started in December 2020, where he shared with me the student athlete, the initiative that they had. You know, they rolled out the internship program, you know, January through March. So it took about 4 months for the first formal NCAA intern to be admitted into the program for summer 2021. You know, the brochure, we had brochures coming out, articles, and then 2022. So we're talking like 2 years, or a bit for this career track to actually take place. And so I would definitely say that career tracks are great, but it's going to be something that it's going to take time. You know, for instance, with MITRE. So kind of when you're working on that career track, make sure that, you know, you understand what the company is about. You got that good relationship with the company, kind of, and, you know, putting a good timeline together to work from, and you've got those goals and outcomes that you both want to work towards. And then, of course, you know, collaborating with others, you know, whether it's, you know, across your campus or across your conference or even your state, schools, definitely, you know, that definitely helps, because for us, for student athlete development professionals or folks that work in athletics, it kind of helps to, you know, lessen the load on one person, that, you know, kind of sharing that load. So career tracks are great, but it does take some time to really put together, but it's definitely worthwhile. And I mean, like I said, like for February 22, the future is upon us. I am only excited and can only imagine where this partnership with MITRE, not only for the ACC, but for the NCAA, how that can go in the future.
Yeah, so that kind of concludes the official kind of presentation around the MITRE career track and the ACC's relationship. And so I want to open up the floor for us to have a Q&A. The question that we asked at the beginning of our session was, what are some of the barriers to career development that your student athletes or you all are facing and working with your student athletes? And so we'll keep that question, right? What are some of the barriers? But we'd love to hear from everyone on the call as well as to what are some of the solutions to those barriers. So let's open up the floor and see if anyone has any questions, whether it's questions around solutions to a barrier or questions around the MITRE and the ACC career track as well.
I have a question. This is Livonia from Louisiana. I now have a question. Is there a formalized MOU or CEA that had to be drafted up, and is it shareable so it could be replicated?
I'm looking at Sarah Grant. See,
No.
go ahead.
No, we didn't have a formalized MOU or anything like that. I mean, we can, from MITRE's perspective, we're able to work with pretty much any school athletic department, anything like that. There's no limitation from that perspective. We do have a few formal relationships, but primarily with only, I think, maybe 1 or 2 institutions. Generally, MITRE, I don't know that MITRE does that as much. It's because we're a not-for-profit entity and the type of work we do, I don't know that we pursue that kind of MOU, MOAs kind of stuff often.
Yeah, and from the ACC's perspective, I had the opportunity to go up and meet with the leadership, a few of the vice presidents at MITRE, and didn't really feel a need to have anything written, right? There isn't any financial exchange from us. It's just understanding that, hey, from ACC standpoint, we're going to vet and provide quality applicants and candidates to MITRE, and MITRE is going to provide a great experience for our student athletes. And it was kind of really the genesis, the nexus of the relationship.
Well, thank you for that. I was not actually hoping to find one, and I'm glad to hear that you all, at the level of engagement that you all from ACC level and then from direct campus level, that you didn't see the need to create anything, a formal structure. With MITRE, and I may have missed it, and there may have been mentioned in the other portion of the presentation, how many employers do you all share a similar relationship that you have with MITRE? And are you seeking to, again, grow that network of employers? Or is MITRE seeking to maybe encourage and bring in their fellow players, so to speak, that's doing similar partnerships?
So this question actually came up when Shamaree and Mara visited. So we have the similar organizations to MITRE are MIT Lincoln Labs, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, the RAND Corporation, Aerospace Corporation, and a handful of other think tanks. And I think there was discussion there that, hey, MITRE is the biggest of the FFRDC operators, but we would happily help to try and connect the ACC or other institutions with those entities, a lot of times because they're relatively unknown. Like think tanks and those kinds of entities are not as known. And I know that's one of the things that Nicole Gilmore, who's our head of student programs, kind of mentioned, and saying that we do get a lot of talent and we don't necessarily want to hold all the talent for ourselves, especially if there's other opportunities that student athletes can flourish in. Because even amongst the 20,000 applicants that we had this year, it's really hard to kind of nail down and give everybody a fair shot. So I think that's one of the things that we would probably seek to propose. And then kind of in the short term, I definitely want to increase the overall proportion of student athletes that get looked at within MITRE, and kind of it's one of the few channels that we have to bring in what I would say are more diverse talent in terms of people from different socioeconomic, racial, and even kind of gender backgrounds, and especially with athletic departments, one of the unique things is, of course, because of Title IX, it's a 50-50 split, which MITRE is not. And so it's a good pond to fish from, per se.
Thank you.
I would like to add one thing that we had to do at UVA was to have our student athletes that were in person, that we needed some sort of waiver for NIL. I wasn't the person overseeing that part of it, but just to release that MITRE wasn't using their name, image, or likeness for promotional purposes. So that was just one piece of paperwork that we had to exchange.
Yeah, so like, for example, you can send me an email later and I can send you an example of the student athlete brochure we had made, and we'll probably do another one this year. A lot of that brochure is actually just used in recruitment, where we send it to student athletes who apply to MITRE so that they can get an idea of what other student athletes' experience was like interning or working at MITRE. But in general, you're not seeing us like, we're a company that doesn't blast ads on the radio or the TV or anything like that because of kind of the work we do.
All right, any other questions, comments before we close out? All right, Heidi, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. If you've been in sessions all day, you know what this is. Please take your phone and scan the QR code so that we can get some feedback on the conference and the session as a whole. And we just appreciate you being here to join us. If you'd like to connect with us individually, we can go ahead and put our emails in the chat, and we'd love to continue the conversation if you're interested in partnering for future career treks or starting some of your own. So thank you.